Cloudy with a chance of showers this afternoon, but it should be clearing up a little later on, and we've already hit our high of 11 degrees. Right now it's 9 degrees. I'm Kendra Hamilton. Here's what's making news in Quinte. A vehicle has been completely destroyed after crashing into a building and catching fire on Shannonville Road early this morning. Tyendinaga Township Fire Chief Mike Boyd says around 2 o'clock, a vehicle went off the road and struck a garage used to store heavy equipment at Chisholm Lumber Mill. Both the vehicle and the building went up in flames. The male driver and lone occupant of the vehicle was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Boyd says the vehicle was destroyed in the fire and estimates there is around $100,000 worth of damage to the garage, which does remain standing. Meanwhile, York Region Police are investigating a single vehicle crash in Vaughan that killed 2 teenagers and left 4 others with injuries ranging from serious to life-threatening. The accident occurred just after 9 o'clock Saturday night. Investigators say 6 people were trapped in the vehicle after it left the road and rolled. They say a 15-year-old girl died at the scene and a 16-year-old boy succumbed to his injuries in hospital. The 4 others are still in hospital. No names or other information has been released at this time. South of the border, there is little structural damage and no fatalities reported in the wake of Hurricane Patricia. As Mexico cleans up from the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the Western Hemisphere, some parts of Texas are dealing with storms that carried more than 300 millimeters of rain. The U.S. National Weather Service says the storms are moving on and flood warnings are ending. Overseas, several European leaders have been invited to a summit today in Brussels to discuss a draft plan that has already drawn criticism for its proposal that countries stop allowing migrants to cross their borders without consulting with their neighbors. Nearly 250,000 migrants have passed through the Balkans since mid-September, and the surge is not expected to stop despite colder weather. EU members Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Romania, and Slovenia have been invited to the summit, along with Macedonia and Serbia. Back at home, municipal staff in Quinte West have several suggestions for city council members as they prepare for the 2016 capital budget talks. A report by Corporate and Financial Services Director David Clazy recommends a dedicated capital tax levy be considered to help add additional funds directly to capital projects. He says Quinte West has between $3 and $4 million to spend on capital each year without relying on other levels of government or taking on more debt. Clazy also suggests a formal reserve policy be established to help set targets on how much money should be kept for operating purposes and to possibly designate some of the funds for specific capital projects. The report is scheduled to be discussed at a special council meeting tomorrow evening. Officials in the 4 U.S. states that have legalized pot have some advice for Justin Trudeau as he looks to deliver on campaign promises to legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana. The Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division warns the process will be more costly and time-consuming than Trudeau thinks. State police in Washington report the number of drivers involved in fatal crashes who tested positive for THC has doubled since legalization and say better tools are needed for roadside checks. And a southern Ontario town has rallied around a terminally ill 7-year-old boy who may not live to see Christmas. Evan Leversage has an inoperable brain tumor, and so he made a bucket list last month, which included a visit to Niagara Falls, a movie, and Christmas. By yesterday afternoon, the lawn outside his home in St. George was blanketed in artificial snow, and about 7,000 people turned up for a special Santa Claus parade. Evan's mother, Nicole Wellwood, says it's been an unforgettable experience that has brought a lot of sunshine during a dark time. Turning to sports, there are 3 games on tap in the NHL tonight, and all of them involve Canadian teams. The Winnipeg Jets start things off by hosting the Minnesota Wild. Then Calgary plays the Rangers in New York. Later, Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers host the LA Kings. Last night, Montreal topped Toronto 5-3 to stretch its unbeaten streak to 9 straight. In local hockey, the Wellington Dukes faced Lindsay at home this evening. Last night, the Cobourg Cougars suffered a 5-2 loss to the Stouffville Spirit. And today's NFL action is off to an early start. The Buffalo Bills and Jacksonville Jaguars are on the field at Wembley Stadium in London. Tonight's late game features the surging Philadelphia Eagles and the unbeaten Carolina Panthers.